So if you're at the butcher and you're wondering which cut of steak to bring to your next barbecue, then this video is for you. If you haven't tried more than the standard Porterhouse, you're in for an awakening. At Big Dog Spices, we've been experimenting with different steak cuts for years with some delicious and remarkable results. In this video, you'll learn more about the steak cuts available to you at your local butcher, and we'll give our Big Dog Spices ratings for each of the cuts available.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to support our channel.
So we're going to start with the big daddy of the meats, the ribeye. So we've got a beautiful ribeye here, and this is lovely to cook on the Weber. It's one of my personal favourites. I personally reverse sear this one.
And something you can notice about the ribeye is a lot of the marbling that comes through the ribeye. That helps with a lot of the tenderness. Once that marbling, the fat renders, it becomes really tender and adds a lot of flavour to the meat. 5 out of 5 for me.
And I would give this a 5 out of 5. It's hands down my absolute favourite. So up next, we've got Scotch Fillet, which is a really popular cut of meat in Australia. We've got a really lovely thick piece here. Now this is a very versatile piece of meat, very flavoursome. You can cook it on the barbecue, the Weber, or even inside, just pan fry it.
So once again, a lot of marbling within the Scotch Fillet, which helps with rendering down and adding a lot of flavour and tenderness to the meat. Another thing that Scotch Fillets are regularly used for is Philly cheese steaks. So another one, 5 out of 5 for me.
Me too, I love this one. It's very versatile and extremely popular. So next up, we have the Rump Cap. So we've got a lovely big piece here. Now Luke, what do you personally like about this one?
This is one of my favourite cuts of meat, is the Rump Cap. So what I like to use this for is picanha, which is a Brazilian style cooking of the Rump Cap, where you can cut it up into nice thick steaks, cover it with nice coarse salt and rotisserie on the Weber, and slice it red. One of the best tasting meats by far. 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I personally give this one a 4. It's not my personal favourite, but it is a very, very lovely piece of meat. So now we move on to the fillet. So we've got a lovely piece of meat here. Now, what people love about this particular cut of meat is it's really lean, really tender. So you generally order this at a high-class restaurant. Luke, what do you like about this one?
Oh, not much, to be honest. I think the fillet for me is a bit of an overrated steak, and you know the reason why I don't really like it is there's not a lot of flavour to it. So very lean steak, no fat, no marbling, and that comes through with the flavour profile. So yeah, it's very, very tender, but apart from that, 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, no, I probably agree. I do think it's slightly overrated. Very tender, but just lacks that flavour. So it's not for me. I give it 3.5 stars as well. So now we're going to move on to the T-bone, another really sort of impressive looking piece of meat, quite big. You serve this up to your guests, you know, you really wow them. It's been called a T-bone because obviously it has the bone goes through the middle of the meat. Luke, do you like cooking with this one?
I love it. Like this one in particular, look how thick it is. Look at the marbling through the fillet piece and look at the marbling through the sirloin Porterhouse side of the T-bone. A great cut of meat, especially when you do it nice and thick like this and you roast it in a wood-fired oven with a lot of salt and herbs. Amazing cut of meat, and so yeah, obviously Fiorentina style, which is Italian. 4 out of 5 for me, at least.
Yeah, I'll give this one 4.5 stars. Excellent flavour profile, but on top of that, I just think it's a really good cut of meat to serve up to your guests. It's really quite big and impressive, so that's probably why it bumps up to 4.5 for me. So we'll move on to the skirt steak now. So we've got this piece here. Now look, I personally haven't cooked much with this at all, so I'm going to hand this one over to Luke to give his verdict.
Yeah, so as you can see, the skirt steak it's got a lot of fat through it, and it's quite stringy. So the best thing you can do with skirt steak, marinated with a wet marinade, which we can talk about in another vlog, and simply grill this on a high heat, either on the flame or just on the gas barbecue, and then make sure you're cutting against the grain when you slice it up. It is very, very tasty meat. You will not regret having this, particularly in Mexican style foods, if you're having a taco or a burrito. So a very nice steak. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5.
And as I said, I haven't really cooked with this much, so I'm going to give this an NA. So we'll move on to the tri-tip next. So we've got one here.
So the tri-tip for me is one of those cuts that people don't really know about, right? And the best thing we can do with this is to reverse sear. What I like to do is smoke it first with a bit of hickory or oak wood. and then sear it over a flame and get it medium rare. The key with tri-tip, as you can see, the grain runs diagonally across here, is to make sure you're cutting across that grain. Now, as soon as you cut across that grain, it becomes a lot more tender. If you cut with the grain, it's going to be very tough and not enjoyable. A very, very nice meat, got a lot of flavour in it, and I give this one a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, for me personally, as Luke mentioned, the key is cutting across the grain. I did make the mistake when I first cooked this, cutting with the grain, and as such, I would have given about a 2 out of 5 for that. But since then, I've obviously learned to cut across the grain, and I give it maybe a 3.5 to 4. So we'll move on to the flank next. So we've got a lovely lean piece here. It's quite big, as you can see. I personally like to marinate this overnight, so I use just a very simple marinade of olive oil, lemon juice, and garlic, and generally just cook it to rare and then slice it against the grain. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, it's very similar. You can also do the dry rub and put it overnight, dry grind it in the fridge overnight, and then just sear it on a very high heat on the gas or the wood flame. The key, once again, serve it rare and cut against the grain. You can see all the grain running across. Make sure you're cutting against that and get it nice and tender. Very nice piece of meat. Haven't tried it, really go out and get it. It's a 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I'd give it, like, it's a pretty solid yet unspectacular kind of meat. I'd probably give it about a 3.5 out of 5. So we'll move on to the last one, which is Porterhouse. Now this is a little bit controversial. A lot of people love Porterhouse, and I personally think it's massively overrated. Don't hate me if you're at home and you do love Porterhouse. I just think, based on the other cuts of meats that we've showed you today, there are better options out there. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Porterhouse, very overpriced, overrated. I think you can get better cuts of meat out there for a much more reasonable price tag. This Porterhouse, on the other hand, looks really good. You know, a lot of molding through it. It's a nice thick cut of steak. You know, you can simply sear this over barbecue or in the pan. You can reverse sear it if you wanted. Definitely serve it medium to medium rare. Very flavorful meat, but sometimes I find it just a bit too tough. And that's probably the reason why I only give it a 3 to 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I personally, as Luke mentioned, I do think it's overrated. This particular cut of meat is probably the best Porterhouse I've ever seen, but I would choose one of these other cuts of meats over it. So I personally would only give this about a 2.5. It's still meat, you still cook it really well, but I just find it a little bit tough unless you absolutely nail it. So it's 2.5 for me. So in the battle of the best steak cuts in Australia, the ribeye reigns supreme. It's just a beautiful big piece of meat, super flavoursome, and if you serve this up at your next barbecue, your guests will be extremely impressed. This is our absolute #1 pick.
So we're taking you through some really good cuts of meat today. These cuts we got from our local butcher, at Melville Heights Butcher. Is one of our favourite butchers and supplies us with all of our meat. And you can see by the quality of this, he really loves and cares about what he's doing. So thanks to him.